The docking procedure was the most dangerous part. Park Sunmi's hands moved across the controls with careful precision. The Shadow Phoenix had to attach to the station without triggering any of the automated security systems. One wrong move, one tiny error, and alarms would sound throughout the entire facility. "Distance to docking port, 20 meters, Sunmi whispered, though there was no need to be quiet in the vacuum of space. 18 meters, 15. Jiwoo watched the displays, his face calm. He trusted Sunmi completely. She had never failed them before. 10 meters, adjusting approach angle by 0.3 degrees. The ship drifted closer. Through the viewport they could see the docking port, a small airlock on the lower level of the station. According to their intelligence, this entrance was used for maintenance crews. It saw little traffic and had minimal surveillance. 5 meters, extending docking clamp. A mechanical arm reached out from the Shadow Phoenix, moving slowly toward the station's airlock. Metal touched metal with barely a sound. Contact, Sunmi breathed. Initiating magnetic seal. There was a soft hum as the systems connected. The Shadow Phoenix was now physically attached to the Daltheon research station. They were in. "Minna, can you access their systems?" Kiwoo asked. The engineer was already working, her screens filled with alien code. "Connecting now. Their security is good, but not good enough. Give me 2 minutes and I'll have control of this section's sensors." Jiwoo stood and moved to the equipment locker. He pulled out his combat suit, a lightweight armor designed for stealth operations. The others did the same. Each suit was black, fitted with sound dampeners and sensor baffles. They would be almost invisible to Daltheon detection equipment. "Weapons check," Jiwoo ordered. Each crew member picked up their weapon. Not the heavy. Plasma rifles that most species used but compact human designs. Kinetic weapons that fired solid projectiles. They were quieter and more reliable. Less advanced, perhaps, but that was humanity's secret. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways. "I'm in," Mena announced. "I've got control of the maintenance section sensors. I can loop the feed for 30 minutes before anyone notices." "Good work. Doyan, you'll stay here with Mena, monitor the station's security, and watch our exit. If anything goes wrong, you seal that hatch and get the ship away." The young corporal nodded, though his face showed disappointment. He wanted to come with them, to be part of the action, but someone had to protect the ship. Someone had to ensure they could escape. Jiwoo, Sunmi, and 2 other crew members moved to the airlock. Sergeant Yun Jihwan was a large man with scars on his hands and a quiet intensity in his eyes. He had been a soldier for 15 years, specializing in close combat. Dr. Kang Suzin was smaller, thinner, but her mind was sharp as a blade. She could read and speak 17 alien languages. "Remember," Jiwoo said as they stood by the inner airlock door, "we're ghosts, we don't exist. We don't engage unless absolutely necessary, in and out, quiet as possible." The airlock cycled open. They stepped into the Daltheon research station. The corridor was empty and dimly lit. The walls were made of some dark metal that absorbed sound. Their boots made no noise on the floor. Everything was larger than human scale, designed for the tall Daltheon bodies. The ceiling was 3 meters high. The doorways were wide enough for 2 humans to walk through side by side. "Data core is 4 levels up," Sujin whispered, checking her portable scanner. "Central section behind 3 security checkpoints." "Then they go up," Jiwoo replied. They moved through the corridors like shadows. When they heard voices approaching, they pressed into alcoves and waited. Daltheon workers passed by, talking in their harsh, clicking language. They never looked down, never noticed the small figures hiding in the darkness. The humans reached a service elevator. Mina's voice came through their earpieces, barely audible. "Elevator is clear. I've disabled the logging system. As far as the station knows, that elevator isn't moving." They stepped inside and rode upward in silence. Each of them checking their weapons, their equipment, their mental preparation. This was the moment of truth. This was why they had traveled so far from Earth. The elevator doors opened on level 3. The corridors here were different, cleaner, brighter. This was where the scientists worked. Where the terrible weapon was being developed, through a large window they could see a laboratory. Inside, Daltheon scientists worked on something massive and complex. A machine covered in cables and glowing panels. Even without technical knowledge, Jiwoo could tell it was dangerous. It radiated power. It radiated death. "That's it," Sujin whispered. "The planet killer." They moved past the laboratory, heading deeper into the facility. Guards appeared ahead, two large Daltheons in armor carrying plasma rifles. There was no way around them. The corridor was straight and empty. Jiwoo made a signal with his hand. Yawan nodded and moved forward. He was the largest of the humans, but even he was smaller than the Daltheons. That didn't matter. He knew how to fight. The sergeant moved like liquid shadow. Before the guards could react, he was on them. His knife found the gap in the first guard's armor right at the neck joint. The Daltheon fell without a sound. The second guard turned, raising his rifle, but Jawan was already moving. A strike to the throat, a twist of the body. The guard collapsed. The entire fight lasted 3 seconds. "Clear?" Jawan said quietly, dragging the bodies into a side room. They continued forward. The data core was close now. Jiwoo could feel it. The tension was building. Every step took them deeper into danger. The data core room was protected by a heavy door with electronic locks. Sujin stepped forward and connected a small device to the control panel. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, entering codes, bypassing security protocols. "This is advanced encryption," she murmured. "Triple redundancy, quantum locks. They really don't want anyone getting in here." "Can you open it?" Jiwoo asked. "Yes, but it will take 5 minutes." "Do it." While Sujin worked, the others stood guard. Javan watched the corridor behind them. Sunmi monitored her scanner, looking for approaching patrols. Jiwoo watched Sujin's progress, counting the seconds in his head. 4 minutes passed. Then 5, then 6. "Almost there," Sujin whispered. "Just one more layer." Suddenly alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed throughout the corridor. A harsh voice boomed from speakers in the ceiling, speaking in the Daltheon language. "What's it saying?" Jiwoo demanded. Sojin's face went pale. "Security breach detected. All units respond to Level 3, Central Section. Intruder alert." "Mina, what happened?" Jiwoo spoke into his communicator. The engineer's voice came back, filled with stress. "A patrol found the guards that Jawan took down. The whole station knows you're here now." Jiwoo made a decision instantly. "Sujin, how long to get through that door?" 2 minutes, maybe less." "Do it! Jawan, hold this corridor." "Nothing gets through. Sunmi, help him." The sounds of running feet echoed through the station. They were coming, dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. The door lock clicked. Sujin pulled it open and they rushed inside. The data core room was filled with computers and screens. In the center, a massive crystalline structure pulsed with light. That was where all the information was stored. Sujin ran to a terminal and began working frantically. Bypassing the internal security, accessing the main files. There's so much data here. Weapons research, ship designs, fleet movements. "Download everything," Jiwoo ordered. "We sort through it later." Outside in the corridor, the first Daltheon soldiers arrived. Plasma bolts lit up the hallway like lightning. Gohan and Sunmi returned fire, using the walls as cover. Their kinetic weapons cracked and barked, so different from the bright energy weapons of the aliens. A Daltheon soldier fell, then another, but more kept coming. They were stronger, taller, better armed. But they were also confused. They had never fought humans before. They didn't know what to expect. "Download at 40%, Sujin called out. "I need more time." "Time is something we don't have," Jiwoo replied, moving to the doorway to add his own fire to the defense. The Daltheons were pressing forward now, their numbers overwhelming. Plasma bolts scorched the walls, melting metal and filling the air with toxic smoke. One bolt came close to Jiwoo's head, missing by centimeters. 60%, Sujin shouted. Jawan took a hit to his shoulder armor. The energy burned through, making him grunt in pain. But he kept firing, kept the enemy back. 80%. More Daltheons arrived. They were bringing heavy weapons now. Jiwoo could see them setting up at the far end of the corridor. "We need to go," Sunmi said urgently. They're bringing up anti-armor weapons. 95%, Sujin called out. Come on, Jiwoo muttered. Come on. Download complete. I have everything. Move! Jiwoo shouted. Back to the ship now! They ran. The alarm systems throughout the Daltheon command station screamed into life. Red lights flashed across every corridor and control room. Officers rushed to their stations, their multiple eyes wide with confusion and fear. Something had entered their space. Something they had never seen before. Admiral Reldick stood at the center of the command bridge, his tall frame casting shadows across the holographic displays. His skin was a deep purple, marked with the scars of 100 battles. He had served the Daltheon Empire for 60 years. In all that time, no enemy had dared to enter this sector without permission. This was their territory, their domain, their hunting ground. Report, he growled, his voice echoing through the bridge. A young officer turned from his console, his hands shaking. Admiral, we detected an energy signature 17 minutes ago. It appeared suddenly near the outer edge of Sector 7. What kind of signature? Reldick moved closer, studying the screen with narrow eyes. Unknown, sir. It doesn't match anything in our database. We've checked every known species, every known ship design. Nothing. The Admiral felt something cold move through his chest. In 3 centuries, the Daltheon Empire had catalogued every vessel, every technology, every weapon system in this part of the galaxy. Their database was complete, perfect. There should be no unknowns. Send 3 battle cruisers to investigate, he ordered. And prepare the destroyers. If this is some new trick from the rebellion, I want it crushed immediately. Far across the sector, hidden in the shadow of a dying star, the Shadow Phoenix drifted through space like a ghost. The ship was small compared to the massive Daltheon war vessels. It measured only 80 meters from nose to tail. Its hull was matte black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. No running lights. No energy emissions. Nothing that would give away its position. Inside the cramped bridge, Captain Hen Jiwoo sat in his command chair, watching the displays with calm eyes. He was 34 years old, with short black hair and a face that showed no emotion. He had been doing this work for 12 years, sneaking into enemy territory, stealing secrets, getting out alive. He was very good at it. They've detected us, said Lieutenant Park Sunmi from the pilot's seat. She was younger than Jiwoo, only 27, but her hands moved across the controls with absolute confidence. 3 battle cruisers are moving our way. How long until they reach our last position? Jiwoo asked. 40 minutes, maybe less. Jiwoo smiled slightly. 40 minutes was more than enough time. The Daltheons were fast, but they were also predictable. They thought in straight lines. They followed protocols. They did everything by the book. That was their weakness. Mena, status on the stealth systems? Jiwoo called over his shoulder. Engineer Choi Mina looked up from her station at the back of the bridge. She was surrounded by screens and cables, her fingers dancing across multiple keyboards at once. All green, Captain. Our stealth field is holding perfectly. They can see where we were, but they can't see where we are. Good. Maintain position and keep monitoring their communications. Corporal Kim Doyeon sat at the weapons station, his young face serious and focused. He was the newest member of the crew, only 23, but Jiwoo had chosen him personally. The young man had a gift for reading tactical situations, for seeing patterns that others missed. Captain, the Daltheon fleet is spreading out, Doyeon reported. They're forming a search pattern around our last known position. Standard protocol for tracking fast-moving targets. Which means they think we're running, Jiwoo said quietly. They don't understand what we are yet? Should we move? Sunmi asked. No, let them search. We're exactly where we need to be. The Shadow Phoenix hung in space, invisible and silent, as the massive Daltheon battlecruisers moved past them. Each cruiser was 5 times the size of the human ship, bristling with weapons and covered in heavy armor. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known fear, but they couldn't see the Shadow Phoenix. The human ship used technology that the Dalthians had never encountered. It didn't just hide from scanners. It made the ship seem like it wasn't there at all, like empty space, like nothing. The research station is 3 hours ahead, Jiwoo said, studying the navigation display. That's our target. The intelligence reports say they're developing a new weapon there. Something powerful enough to sterilize entire planets. Mena looked up from her work, her face pale. That's genocide. That's what empires do, Jiwoo replied. They crush anyone who threatens their power. That's why we're here. To stop them before they can use it. The crew fell silent. They all knew what was at stake. Humanity had only recently made contact with the wider galaxy. They were newcomers, unknown, underestimated. Most species saw them as primitive, backward, not worth noticing. That was exactly what humanity wanted them to think for 5 years. Human scouts had been mapping the galaxy, learning about the major powers, understanding their strengths and weaknesses. They had watched the Dalthian Empire expand, conquering world after world. They had seen the cruelty, the oppression, the casual violence, and they had decided to do something about it. Captain, the battle cruisers are moving away, Sumney reported. They're heading deeper into the sector. Plot a course to the research station, Jiwoo ordered. Use the gravity well of that gas giant to hide our approach. Silent running all the way. Understood? The Shadow Phoenix began to move, so slowly and carefully that it seemed like a natural drift. It used the gravity of nearby planets and stars to pull itself forward, never firing its main engines, never creating the energy signature that would give it away as they traveled. Mina worked on our systems, preparing for what was to come. Captain, I've been studying the station's security protocols. They use quantum encryption on all their data cores? Very sophisticated. Can you break it? Mina smiled. Of course. It'll take time, but I can do it. These aliens are smart, but they all think the same way. Once you understand their logic patterns, their systems become predictable. Doyan checked his weapon systems, making sure everything was ready. The Shadow Phoenix didn't carry heavy weapons. It wasn't designed for direct combat. Instead, it had precision tools. Targeted strikes. Systems designed to disable rather than destroy. How many guards at the station? Doyan asked. Jiwoo pulled up the intelligence file. Approximately 200 Dalthian soldiers, plus another 100 scientists and support staff. The station has automated defenses, but they're designed to stop large vessels. Not something our size. So we slip in quiet, grab the data, and slip out before they know we're there, Sunmi said. That's the plan. Hours passed as they moved through space. The crew worked in silence, each focused on their tasks. They had done missions like this before, but never this deep in enemy territory. Never this close to the heart of the Dalthian Empire. Finally, the research station appeared on their screens. It was enormous, a massive ring of metal and glass orbiting a blue gas giant. Lights flickered across its surface. Ships moved in and out of its docking bays. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful, but Jiwoo knew what was inside. Weapons, terrible weapons designed to kill billions. Take us in slow, he ordered. Stay in the shadow of the fourth moon. We dock on the lower level, Section 12. That's the maintenance area. Fewer guards, acknowledged. The Shadow Phoenix glided forward like a hunting shark, silent, invisible, deadly as they approached the station. Jiwoo looked at his crew. These people trusted him, followed him, put their lives in his hands. They still haven't figured out what we are, he said quietly. Good, let's keep it that way. The ship moved into position. The mission was about to begin. The corridors of the research station had become a war zone. Plasma bolts screamed through the air, melting walls and setting equipment on fire. Smoke filled the passageways, making it hard to see more than a few meters ahead. Alarm sirens wailed endlessly. Mixing with the shouts of Dalthian soldiers and the crack of human weapons, Jiwoo led his team through the chaos, moving fast but staying tactical. They couldn't just run blindly. Every corner could hide an ambush. Every doorway could contain enemies. Left here? Sujing called out, checking her portable map of the station. This corridor leads to the service elevator. They turned the corner and immediately came under fire. 3 Daltheon soldiers stood at the end of the hallway, their weapons already raised. Plasma bolts burned past the humans. Close enough that Fiwu could feel the heat through his armor, Jawan threw a flashbang grenade. The device exploded with blinding light and deafening sound. The Daltheons staggered, their enhanced senses overwhelmed. In that moment of confusion, the humans struck. 3 quick bursts of fire. 3 bodies on the ground. "Keep moving," Jiwoo ordered. Already running forward, they reached the service elevator, but the doors wouldn't open. The station's security systems had locked everything down. "Maina, we need this elevator open now," Jiwoo said into his communicator. "Working on it?" the engineer replied. "But they've activated the emergency protocols. Everything is encrypted and triple locked. Give me 30 seconds. 30 seconds felt like an eternity. Behind them, they could hear more soldiers approaching. Heavy footsteps. Angry voices. The sound of weapons being charged. Sunmi and Jawan took positions on either side of the corridor, weapons ready. Sujin crouched behind a support pillar, clutching the data drive that held all the stolen information. That tiny device was worth more than their lives. It contained secrets that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The first Daltheon soldiers appeared at the far end of the corridor. They were wearing heavy combat armor now, thick plates that could withstand most weapons' fire. They moved forward slowly, confidently, knowing the humans were trapped. "Elevators coming online," Mina announced. 5 more seconds. The Daltheons opened fire. Plasma bolts filled the corridor like a storm of energy. The humans pressed themselves against the walls, making themselves as small as possible. A bolt struck near Sunmi's head, melting the metal wall and showering her with hot fragments. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime that seemed absurd given the circumstances. "Go, go, go!" Jiwoo shouted. They piled into the elevator, firing back at the Daltheons as they moved. The doors began to close. A plasma bolt shot through the gap, missing Jawan by inches. Then the doors sealed shut and they were descending. "Everyone okay?" Jiwoo asked, breathing hard. Jawan was holding his wounded shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. "I'm fine. Just a burn." "We're not out yet," Sunmi said, checking her ammunition. "They know we're heading for the lower levels. They'll be waiting." She was right. When the elevator doors opened on the maintenance level, they were greeted by a squad of Daltheon soldiers. But Mina had been working her magic. The lights in the corridor suddenly went out, plunging everything into darkness. Humans had always been good at fighting in the dark. Their eyes adapted quickly. Their other senses sharpened. The Daltheons, used to bright lights and clear visibility, were momentarily confused. The humans moved through that confusion like ghosts. Quick strikes. Precise shots. By the time the emergency lights came on, the Daltheon soldiers were down, and the humans were already running toward the docking port. "Doyan, start warming up the ship," Jiwoo commanded. "We're coming in hot." "Roger that." "Be advised, 3 Daltheon battlecruisers are converging on this station. Estimated arrival time, 8 minutes. 8 minutes. They needed to be gone in 5. They reached the docking port airlock. Maina had left it open for them, but now Daltheon security forces were right behind them. The humans could hear shouting, running footsteps, the whine of charging weapons. "Through the airlock," Jiwoo ordered. "Seal it behind us." Javan was the last one through. As soon as he crossed the threshold, Jiwoo slapped the emergency seal button. The heavy door slammed shut just as plasma bolts struck it from the other side. The door would hold, but not for long. They rushed through the airlock into the Shadow Phoenix. Doyan was already in the pilot's seat, his hands flying across the controls. "Detach docking clamp," Jiwoo commanded, throwing himself into his command chair. "Detaching now." There was a grinding sound as the magnetic seals released. The Shadow Phoenix began to drift away from the station, slowly at first, then faster. "Full power to engines," Jiwoo ordered. "Get us out of here." The ship's engines flared to life. The Shadow Phoenix shot away from the research station like a bullet from a gun. Behind them, the station's defensive weapons activated, firing streams of plasma into space. But the human ship was small and fast. It weaved between the bolts like a dancer, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. "The battle cruisers are adjusting course," Maynard reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "They're trying to intercept us. Can they catch us?" Sunny asked. "Not in open space. But they're positioning themselves to cut off our escape routes. They're hurting us." Kiwu studied the tactical display. The 3 Daltheon battle cruisers were massive ships, each carrying hundreds of soldiers and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. They couldn't match the Shadow Phoenix for speed, but they didn't need to. They just needed to force the human ship into a killing zone. "There," Jiwoo said, pointing at the display. "That asteroid field. Head for it." "Captain, that field is extremely dense," Doyeon protested. "The collision risk is, I know. That's why we're going there. Those big cruisers can't follow us into tight spaces. We can lose them in the rocks." Doyeon swallowed hard but nodded. "Understood. Plotting course for the asteroid field?" The Shadow Phoenix changed direction, angling toward a massive cluster of tumbling rocks and ice. The asteroids ranged from tiny pebbles to chunks of stone the size of mountains. They spun and collided in a chaotic dance that had gone on for millions of years. "They're following us," Mina said. "All 3 cruisers are adjusting course. Let them follow. They'll regret it." As they approached the asteroid field, Jiwoo switched on the ship-wide communicator. "Everyone strap in. This is going to get rough." The first asteroids rushed past the viewport, close enough to see the craters and ice crystals on their surfaces. Doyeon's hands moved constantly on the controls, making tiny adjustments every second. Left, right, up, down. The Shadow Phoenix twisted through gaps that seemed too small for any ship to fit through. Behind them, the Daltheon cruisers entered the field. But they were too large, too slow. The first cruiser tried to follow the human ship's exact path and immediately struck an asteroid. The impact wasn't enough to destroy the massive vessel, but it tore a gash along its hull. Warning lights flashed across its bridge. The second cruiser tried to take a wider path, pushing asteroids out of its way with its forward shields. But the field was too dense, too chaotic. Rocks came from every direction. The cruiser's shields began to fail under the constant bombardment. Only the third cruiser held back. Staying at the edge of the field, its sensors locked on the Shadow Phoenix. "Smart captain," Jiwoo muttered. "He's not going to follow us in. He's going to wait for us to come out." Admiral Vrelduk stood on the bridge of the third cruiser, watching the display with cold fury. These intruders, whoever they were, had embarrassed him. They had penetrated deep into Daltheon space, stolen vital information, and now they were making his ships look foolish. "Surround the asteroid field," he commanded. "Station ships at every possible exit point. When they emerge, I want every weapon trained on them. I want them destroyed." "Yes, Admiral," his officers replied, but even as he gave the orders, Vrelduk felt a growing unease. These unknown enemies were different from anything he had encountered before. They moved differently, fought differently, thought differently. What were they? Inside the asteroid field, the Shadow Phoenix continued its dangerous dance. Doyeon was sweating now, his concentration absolute. Every turn had to be perfect. Every calculation had to be exact. One mistake, and they would collide with a rock at thousands of kilometers per hour. There would be no warning, no time to react. Just instant death. "How are we doing on fuel?" Jiwoo asked. "Down to 60%, Mina reported. This kind of maneuvering burns through our reserves fast. Can we make it to the rendezvous point? If we get out of this field in the next 10 minutes, yes. If not, we'll be floating dead in space." Jiwoo nodded. They needed to finish this soon. "Sujin, how's that data looking?" The doctor had been working on her terminal, analyzing what they had stolen. Her face was pale as she looked up. "Captain, this is worse than we thought. The weapon they're building, it doesn't just destroy planets. It can ignite the atmosphere of any world, turning it into a fireball. And they're almost finished building it. Maybe 2 weeks from completion. The bridge fell silent. 2 weeks. If they didn't act fast, billions of innocent lives would be at risk. Then we need to get this information to Admiral Song, Jiwoo said quietly. She know what to do with it. Captain, I'm picking up a narrow gap between asteroids ahead, Doyeon announced. If I thread through it... The gap between the asteroids was impossibly narrow. 2 massive chunks of rock, each the size of a city, spinning slowly toward each other. The space between them was closing. In 30 seconds they would collide and the gap would cease to exist. We can make it, Doyeon said. Though his voice was tight with tension, the Shadow Phoenix accelerated, diving toward the shrinking opening. Asteroids rushed past on all sides, so close that the sensors screamed warnings. The ship shuddered as small rocks bounced off the hull, leaving scratches on the armor. 20 seconds until the gap closed. Behind them, one of the Daltheon cruisers tried to follow. It was a fatal mistake. The massive ship was too slow, too large. It entered the gap just as the asteroids came together. The sound of the collision echoed through space like thunder. The cruiser was crushed between 2 mountains of stone, its hull crumpling like paper. Atmosphere vented into space. Fires erupted across its broken surface. The Shadow Phoenix shot through the gap with seconds to spare. The asteroids ground together behind them, sealing the passage forever. We're clear of the field, Doyeon announced, breathing hard. Status? Jiwoo demanded. Minor hull damage. Nothing critical. Fuel at 40%. All systems functional? What about the Daltheans? Mina checked her sensors. The cruiser that tried to follow us is destroyed. The other one that entered the field is limping away, heavily damaged. But the third cruiser, the one that stayed outside, is still operational. And Captain, it's blocking our path to the rendezvous point. Jiwoo studied the tactical display. Admiral Vreldok's ship sat directly between them in safety. The Daltheon commander had predicted their exit point perfectly. Now they were trapped. Behind them, the asteroid field. Ahead, a warship with enough firepower to vaporize them. He's good, Jiwoo admitted quietly. He's thinking like we do. We could try to go around, Sunmi suggested. Use the planet's gravity to slingshot us past him. He'd adjust course and intercept us? That ship has better engines than we do in open space. Then what do we do? Before Jiwoo could answer, Mina's console erupted with alerts. Captain, I'm picking up new contacts. Multiple ships entering the sector. Oh no, what is it? It's the rest of the Daltheon fleet. 10 more battle cruisers, 15 destroyers, and at least 30 fighters. They're forming up around us. The viewport filled with massive shapes as the Daltheon fleet arrived. Each ship was enormous, bristling with weapons. The fighters moved in precise formations, ready to swarm over the tiny human vessel like insects. We're surrounded, Doyeon said unnecessarily, on the bridge of his flagship. Admiral Vreldok smiled for the first time in hours. Finally. Now we have them. All ships, weapons charged and ready. But do not fire yet. I want to try something first. He activated the communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies. His words would reach the enemy ship, whoever they were. Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Vreldok of the Daltheon Empire. You are completely surrounded. Your ship is damaged. You have nowhere to run. I am prepared to destroy you, but I am also curious. Who are you? What species possesses such advanced stealth technology? Respond and identify yourselves. On the Shadow Phoenix, the crew listened to the Admiral's words. Jiwoo sat in his command chair, his face expressionless. Are you going to respond? Sunmi asked. No, let him wonder. Besides, we're about to have company. What do you mean? Jiwoo checked the chronometer. Captain Lee Hyun should be arriving any moment now. As if summoned by his words, new contacts appeared on the sensors. But these weren't Daltheon ships. 3 human vessels materialized out of stealth, appearing between the Shadow Phoenix and the enemy fleet. They were destroyer-class ships, larger and more heavily armed than Jiwoo's vessel, The lead ship opened a communication channel. Captain Li Haiyan's face appeared on the screen. He was older than Jiwoo, with gray in his hair and laugh lines around his eyes. But those eyes were cold and hard right now. "Sorry we're late," Haiyan said calmly. "Had to wait for the perfect moment." "Nice work getting that data, Jiwoo." "Good to see you, Haiyan. Things were getting a bit crowded here." "I can see that. Don't worry. We brought friends." On the Daltheon flagship, chaos erupted as the sensors detected the new arrivals. Officers shouted reports, their voices overlapping in confusion. "Admiral, 3 unknown vessels have appeared. They materialized from nowhere, just like the first one." "What are they?" Vrelduk demanded. "Unknown, sir. They don't match any profiles in our database. But they're larger than the first ship, and their weapon systems are powering up." Before Vrelduk could respond, more ships appeared. And more, and more. Within 30 seconds, 20 human vessels surrounded the Daltheon fleet. They had appeared from stealth positions all around the sector. Perfectly coordinated. The hunter had become the hunted. "This is Captain Li Haiyan of the human fleet to Admiral Vrelduk of the Daltheon Empire." Haiyan's voice came over the communications channel. "You asked what species we are. We are humans. We come from a planet called Earth, far from here. You have never heard of us because we prefer to operate in the shadows. But today we're making an exception." Vrelduk stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Human? He had heard the name before. Some minor species that had recently achieved faster-than-light travel? Primitive, unimportant? How could they possibly have technology like this? "You are making a terrible mistake," Vrelduk said, keeping his voice steady. "You have attacked Daltheon territory and stolen classified information. This is an act of war. Our empire spans 100 star systems. We have fleets that could darken the skies of your world. Surrender now, and we may show mercy?" Haiyan laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "You still don't understand, do you? We're not here to start a war. We're here to end one. Your weapon, the planet killer you're building, we know all about it. We've downloaded every detail, every schematic, every calculation." "That information is useless to you," Vrelduk replied. "You lack the technology to build such a weapon. We don't want to build it. We want to destroy it. And we will. You and what army?" "This one." Space itself seemed to tear open as dozens more human ships appeared. Capital ships, carriers, cruisers, they filled the sector like stars appearing in the night, and they were all armed. All ready for battle. Admiral Song Murray's flagship was the largest of them all, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the Daltheon battle cruisers. The Admiral herself appeared on every communication screen in the sector. She was a woman in her 60s, her hair pulled back in a tight bun, her uniform covered in medals and ribbons. "I am Admiral Song Murray of the Human Defense Fleet," she announced. "Admiral Vrelduk, your empire has been conducting weapons research that threatens innocent species across the galaxy. We have evidence of your plans. Evidence that we are now broadcasting on every frequency to every civilized world in this region of space. On planets throughout the sector, on space stations and mining colonies, on diplomatic vessels and civilian transports. Beings of 100 different species received the transmission. They saw the plans for the Daltheon planet killer. They saw the calculations showing how it would work. They saw the list of targets, worlds that the Empire planned to sterilize if they refused to submit. The galaxy watched. And the galaxy was horrified. "What you're doing won't change anything," Vrelduk said, though his voice had lost its confidence. "The Empire is too powerful to be stopped." "Your empire is too powerful to be stopped by force," Admiral Song agreed. "But power isn't just about weapons and ships. It's about trust. It's about legitimacy. And you just lost both. Every species in this region now knows what you were planning. They know you were willing to commit genocide to maintain your control. How long do you think your empire will last when everyone knows the truth?" As if to answer her question, new signals flooded the communication channels. Rebellions were erupting on Daltheon-controlled worlds. Allied species were withdrawing their support. Trade routes were being closed. The carefully constructed facade of the Empire's benevolent rule was crumbling. "This is your last chance," Admiral Song said. "Order your fleet to stand down. Agree to international oversight of your weapons programs. Begin negotiations for a peaceful transition to a more democratic system. Or we will destroy the planet killer facility ourselves and let the galaxy sort out what comes after." Vreldek looked at his tactical display. The human fleet outnumbered his ships. More importantly, they had the element of surprise. They had planned this perfectly. Every move had been calculated. They had turned his own trap against him. He was beaten. He knew it. His officers knew it. The whole galaxy would soon know it. "Very well," he said quietly. "I will transmit orders to the fleet to stand down. But this isn't over. The Empire will remember this humiliation." "I'm counting on it," Admiral Song replied. "Because the next time you think about threatening innocent species, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that humanity is watching, and we will not allow genocide. Not today. Not ever." On the Shadow Phoenix, Jiwoo allowed himself a small smile. The mission had been successful. More than successful. They had done what they came to do. "Good job, everyone," he said to his crew. "Let's go home." The Daltheon fleet did not move. Their weapons stayed powered down. Their ships held position, surrounded by the human vessels like prey surrounded by predators. Admiral Vreldek had given the order to stand down, but he had not surrendered. Not completely. He sat in his command chair, watching the displays, waiting for an opportunity. Any opportunity, but that opportunity never came. While the Daltheon ships remained frozen in space, human vessels were already moving toward their next objective. Admiral Song had not been bluffing. She had every intention of destroying the planet killer facility before it could be used. "Captain Jiwoo," the Admiral's voice came over the communication channel. "Your mission is complete. Return to the fleet and prepare for debriefing." "Actually, Admiral," Jiwoo replied calmly, "I was hoping for one more assignment." There was a pause. Then Admiral Song's face appeared on the screen, one eyebrow raised. "I'm listening." "The planet killer facility is in the Korthus system. That's 3 days' travel from here at fleet speed. But a small ship like the Shadow Phoenix could use unstable jump points and be there in 6 hours. Those jump points are extremely dangerous," the Admiral said. "Ships have been lost attempting to use them." "Yes, ma'am. But we have something the other ships didn't have. We have Dr. Kang Soo-jin. She's been studying the gravitational calculations. She believes she can plot a safe course." On the bridge of the Shadow Phoenix, Soo-jin looked up in surprise. Jiwoo had not discussed this with her beforehand. But as she met his eyes, she understood what he was asking. Could she do it? Could she navigate them through unstable spacetime to reach their target before anyone else? She thought about the calculations she had been working on, the equations that had fascinated her for years. Yes, she could do it. "Captain Jiwoo is correct, Admiral," Soo-jin said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "I can get us there safely." Admiral Song studied them for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Very well. But you won't be going alone. I'm assigning Commander Lee Hyan's destroyer to accompany you. If you're going to disable that weapon, you'll need backup." "Understood, Admiral. And Jiwoo? Don't take any unnecessary risks. We've already won this day." "Come back alive." "Yes, ma'am." 6 hours later, the Shadow Phoenix and Commander Hyan's destroyer emerged from the final jump point near the Korthus system. The journey had been terrifying. The unstable jump points twisted space in ways that made the instruments scream and the crew's stomachs turn. But Soo-jin's calculations had been perfect. They had made it through. "There it is," Doyan said, pointing at the main display. The planet killer facility floated in orbit around a barren moon. It was enormous, a structure of metal and crystal that stretched for kilometers. At its heart, visible even from this distance, was a massive focusing array. That was the weapon itself, the thing that could ignite a planet's atmosphere and burn away all life. "Scans show approximately 500 personnel on that station," Mina reported. Most of them are scientists and technicians. There's a small security force, maybe 50 soldiers. They haven't detected us yet? Doyan added. We're still running silent. Commander Hyan's face appeared on the communication screen. Jiwoo, what's the plan? The plan is simple. We need to get inside that facility and sabotage the focusing array. According to the stolen data, if we overload the primary power conduits, the whole weapon will become unstable. It won't explode, but it will be permanently disabled. And how do we get inside? That facility will have security systems as good as the research station. Better, probably, Jiwoo agreed. But we have something we didn't have before. We have complete technical specifications. Sujin has been studying them during the journey. She knows every system, every security protocol, every weak point. The doctor nodded. The facility has a waste disposal port on the lower level. It's designed to jettison radioactive material into the moon's gravity well. The port has minimal security because no one expects an attack from that direction. Sounds messy, Hyan commented. It will be, Jiwoo admitted. But it's our best option. Your destroyer will stay here and be ready to extract us if things go wrong. We'll take the Shadow Phoenix in alone. You're sure about this? We've come this far. Let's finish it. The Shadow Phoenix detached from the destroyer and began its approach to the facility. They moved slowly, carefully, using the moon's gravity to hide their approach. The facility's sensors swept past them but found nothing. Just another piece of space debris drifting in orbit. The waste disposal port was exactly where the specifications said it would be. A large opening in the station's hull, protected only by a magnetic field that kept the atmosphere in while allowing solid waste to pass through. Mina, can you disrupt that field for 30 seconds? Jiwoo asked. Not disrupt. But I can modulate the frequency so that our ship passes through without triggering alarms. It'll look like a normal fluctuation. Do it! The engineer's fingers flew across her console. The magnetic field shimmered and changed. The Shadow Phoenix moved forward slowly, pushing through the field like passing through water. Then they were inside the facility, floating in a large chamber filled with sealed containers of radioactive waste. We're in, Sunmi announced. Sealing the ship and preparing for boarding. The team assembled at the airlock again. Jiwoo, Jawan, Sujin, and Sunmi. Mina and Doyan would stay with the ship, ready to provide technical support and cover their escape. They entered the facility through a maintenance hatch. The corridors here were different from the research station. Everything was newer, cleaner, more advanced. This was the Empire's most important project. They had spared no expense. The focusing array control room is 12 levels up, Sujin whispered, checking her map. That's where we need to go. They moved through the facility like ghosts. When they encountered workers, they simply avoided them. When avoidance was impossible, Jawan's silent takedowns ensured no alarms were raised. The unconscious Douthians were hidden in storage rooms, tied up and gagged out as they climbed higher in the facility. They began to see the true scale of the weapon. Through observation windows, they could see the massive focusing array stretching away into the distance. Thousands of crystal lenses, each precisely aligned. When activated, they would concentrate stellar radiation into a beam powerful enough to ignite an atmosphere from orbit. This is madness, Sunni whispered. Who builds something like this? Someone who believes they have the right to destroy entire worlds, Jiwoo replied quietly. Someone who needs to be stopped. They reached the control room without raising any alarms. The door was locked, but Sojin made quick work of the security system. They entered to find 3 Douthian technicians working at consoles. Running final tests on the weapon. The technicians looked up in shock. Before they could react, Jawan had his weapon trained on them. Don't move. Don't speak. Just put your hands where I can see them. The Douthians complied, their multiple eyes wide with fear. Sujin, you're up, Jiwoo said. The doctor moved to the main control console and began working. Her fingers danced across the alien interface, accessing systems, bypassing security protocols, rewriting code. The stolen data had given her everything she needed to know about how the weapon functioned. I'm in, she announced after 2 minutes. Accessing the power regulation systems now. How long? Jiwoo asked, watching the door. 5 minutes to set up the overload cascade. Once it starts, we'll have 10 minutes to get out before the system becomes critical. Then we'd better hurry. Those 5 minutes felt like hours. Every sound in the corridor outside made the team tense, ready for combat. But no one came. The facility's security forces had no idea that intruders were in their most secure area. Done, Sujin said finally. The cascade is ready to initiate. Once I activate it, there's no stopping it. The weapon will be permanently disabled. Jiwoo looked at the 3 Daltheon technicians. They stared back at him with hatred and fear. These people had been building a weapon of genocide. They had been preparing to murder billions of innocent beings. But they were also just following orders, just doing their jobs. You 3, Jiwoo said in his basic Daltheon. Leave, sound the evacuation alarm. Get everyone off this station. You have 10 minutes. The technicians ran. Within seconds, alarms were sounding throughout the facility. Daltheon voices shouted warnings. People began running toward the evacuation ships. That was merciful, Jawan commented. That was necessary, Jiwoo replied. We're here to stop genocide, not commit it. Now move. We need to get back to the ship. They ran through the corridors as the facility erupted into chaos. Workers and soldiers rushed past them, heading for the escape pods and ships. No one tried to stop the humans. Everyone was too focused on saving themselves. The team reached the waste disposal chamber just as the timer hit 5 minutes. They boarded the Shadow Phoenix and sealed the hatch. Mena had the engines already running. Go! Jiwoo commanded. The ship shot out of the facility like a bullet. Behind them, Daltheon vessels were fleeing in all directions, desperately trying to get clear before the weapon system overloaded at exactly 10 minutes. The focusing array lost containment. The massive crystal lenses shattered one by one in a cascade of destruction. The energy conduits melted. The power core went into emergency shutdown. Fire and venting atmosphere lit up the facility like a dying star.